let's jump in here, okay? So let's look at production versus destruction. We've seen an increase in production, which is nice, right? If you look at the past 2 years, this has been a big issue in terms of the EVE economy. We've seen not only scarcity, or whatever phrase you want to call the phase, hit EVE, and this has not only impacted prices considerably, but it took a bunch of production out. Not the least, it took out basically the complete capital construction out of the EVE economy, because they are currently not in any way, shape or form profitable to produce. And so this right here has been the result of that phase in the economic cycle of EVE Online. Now what we're seeing here is promising, because we're seeing some production come back. We've seen these phases in the past month as well, so I'm not celebrating yet. By the way, if you're wondering what is this peak right here that happened, this is when the big industry changes hit. And the industry change that made, for example, faction ships, battleships upward, and most of all capital ships more expensive from their components on their blueprints. And so this is where everyone jumped in and tried to produce as much as possible before those changes hit. This is pretty much an economic disaster, because what you're seeing here is people having knowledge of what's coming, right? And I realize why CCP had to provide that knowledge. Still, this basically ruined a lot of markets for a long time, because what this meant is people were able to stockpile or at least use up their stockpile of raw materials to produce, so that afterwards nobody had to produce anymore, and that's what we're seeing down here. So yeah, this is production. In terms of the blue graph right there, destruction, it is low and it's pretty constant. So there's no large wars going on right now. There's just not enough destruction, I think, to drive up demand and drive up production. That's one of the issues we're facing in the EVE economy right now. And in the orange line right there, you see the mining value, which was increased in November. Then again, it dropped back down. But on this number, we kind of have to look at the detailed graphs, because it's some of these are not. Some of these are a bit misleading, right? This is the region graph. The only reason I want to mention this, right, is because I love the fact that we now have this graph, right, in the monthly economic report. This is a regional view of destruction, mining value, import exports, bounties, production, and trade value on one sheet. So, this is too much detail to go through in my show today. But if you guys are interested, and if you typically don't look at the monthly economic report, this is something to definitely look at, because it's just interesting, and it hasn't been there before. It just got added last month, and so thank you to the MER team for adding this. It's really valuable when you try to find the reason for certain market shifts, when you try to find what the action is, and so on, right? So I'm not going to go into this more detailed. What we are going to talk about is this graph, and this is asteroid ore mined over time. So what you can see here is, the main thing is that in December we saw the waste mechanic, or whatever it's called now, introduced, and you can see how much that is contributing to the or subtracting from the overall asteroid ore and minerals that are then subsequently hitting the markets, right? So what you can see here is that the overall ore value that is entering the markets really hasn't changed that much over the last 2 months since waste got introduced, but waste got added. So essentially what you could say is people are mining a bit more, but more is going waste, or at least some of it's going to waste now. So now, you know, we don't really see much more asteroids or ore entering the market, or minerals entering the market. In terms of gas, the picture is a little bit different. We do see an increase there, right? Here we are seeing an increase over the last few months. So more gas hitting the markets. In terms of ice, ice is something where CCP has added or doubled the amount of ice in the game twice in the last 6 to 8 months, I think, and you can see that very clearly. So here, you know, we do see a lot more ice hitting the market. This right here is you know, event related. Had a big discussion on my stream about this, but you know, this is a this is the end, or this is in the end an increase of ice entering the market. Moon ore also, I mean, in November we saw that the amount, or November, December, we saw the amount of moon ore doubled. So that's also no surprise. And this is my favorite graph of the MER, right? That is the Isk sinks and faucets, okay? Why is this such an important graph when talking about the economy of EVE Online? This basically governs inflation and deflation and the money supply within EVE. So if EVE were a country, which from an economic perspective you can consider it to be one, right? Then this graph right here will tell you how much money is entering the market and how much is exiting. And the reason that is so important is because if you have much more money entering, much more cash entering the system than exiting the system, then what you see is inflation, right? And even if you don't have an economics major out there, then you probably know that inflation means everything is getting more expensive, because you essentially have the same amount of resources in the game with more cash, meaning that the cash distributes way more. An easy example is that if you give everyone in the country $100, right, then you're just immediately going to cause inflation, because everyone has more money and everyone's going to outbid each other for the scarce resources. So if you're a CCP or if you're a reserve bank in the real world, what you're trying to do is you're trying to manage Isk sinks and manage Isk faucets, right? And you're trying to make sure that inflation is not running rampant, because that's going to make everyone unhappy, right? Because that will make everything more expensive and everyone will be able to afford less. But you're also not trying to deflate too much, because if you're pulling too much Isk out of the markets, then prices will be dropping, and you will be able, and a lot of people will not be able to make a living, i.e., not be able to make money. So this right here, right? This right here is incredibly important. And if you look at this part of the graph right here, it tells you that at the beginning of the month in EVE Online, we had 1,444 trillion Isk in the game, right? Faucets in the game added 108 trillion, right? 75 trillion was pulled out by Isk sinks. The active Isk delta subtracted 15 billion Isk, and that means that basically means it's two big sections in there. One is GM actions, so confiscated, closed accounts from botting, etc. And the second one is people exiting the game. So if you don't play the game for a while, after a while, CCP considers your account as inactive, and the Isk that is on your account gets pulled out of this calculation. as it probably should be, right? You can argue one way or the other, but it certainly makes sense. So in this case, what we had more, this month in January, we had more Isk entering the game than exiting the game. And that means we had likely from an economic theory perspective, slight inflation, which is good, which is something that you want to have as long as everything is, in the below 1%. It's really nothing to worry about. So this thing right here is really important. Now, one thing you have to understand, right? And it's I have to address the people that are asking about Eve when, because it might be, so one thing you won't see today on my show is a ship undocking, right? So I'm gonna have to disappoint you right then and there. Today we're not gonna be undocking ships. We're going to be talking Eve markets. We're going to talk about how to profit from Eve markets, and we're talking about the forces that impact Eve economy. And if that is not something that you're interested in, then I'm sorry, but that's how it's going to happen today, all right? So one thing you have to understand about this graph right here is that something like mining, right? Something like mining does not add Isk to the game, right? If somebody mines ore, right? No Isk is entering the game. You will not find mining ore in here in the ink faucets, right? If everything stayed the same and everyone just went out and mined more, what would happen is you would have the same amount of Isk and more ore, and that would just crash the prices, right? So that is actually one of the major misunderstandings that people have from the EVE Online markets, right? If you just add more ore to the system, if everyone just went out and mined more ore, all that would do is it would drop the price of ore, right? That's all, or drop the price of minerals. What you instead see here, what are the real faucets, the real Isk faucets in EVE Online, in the economy, is blue loot, right? And bounties. So bounties, payouts from ratting, and blue and red loot. So people looting, for example, Triglavian data, blah blah things, or the overseer stuff. I know I'm a professional. That is what adds Isk to the game, and that is a real issue, right? Because what you see in situations like, for example, in the Christmas event where we had the overseer personal effects run rampant, pretty much. What that does, it creates Isk from thin air, right? And it adds Isk to the game. And so when people talk about, oh, I love the Christmas event, right? The Christmas event, you get drops here, drops there. It's blue loot everywhere. We're going to we're all going to be rich. That is a fallacy. That is actually somebody. That is smoke and mirrors, because what that does is it increases, or it stays, the purchasing power stays the same for everyone looting all of that blue loot. For everyone else, prices are just getting more expensive because you have more Isk entering the market, causing inflation, making everything else more expensive. And if you're not out there making money, then you're actually losing out, right? So for everyone that is not running those events, like really at a high level, they're actually losing out, right? So that is something that you need to keep in mind before you say things like, oh yeah, we want events where there's tons of shit dropping. This is an economy, right? In an economy, you cannot make up economic value, right? You can only create economic value in the game through production, through in-game activities. If you want to, if you talk about just everyone getting blue loot for free, then all you're doing is you're just diluting the prices, right? So you're just causing inflation. You're reducing everyone's purchasing power, and that is not a great thing. So that's why you should be paying attention to this slide. And I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, this is boring. I want to PvP. I want to destroy ships. But in the end, what this talks about is this determines how expensive are your PvP ships going to be, right? Now, what are other Isk faucets? Mission rewards, obviously insurance. Insurance creates money from thin air as well, right? ESS main bank payments, yes, they have this is Isk entering the system. If we go to the other end, right? Let's talk about what takes Isk out of the economy. Then it's basically me. All right? It's shit that I do. Making trades, transaction tax, by far the biggest Isk sink in the game is people trading in the market. And if you're like me, if you're trading 4 to 5 trillion Isk a month, then you can see that is contributing greatly, especially now that the transaction tax was increased by a lot. You can see that is taking a lot of Isk out of the market. And so if you complain about oh, CCP is not managing the market well, then yeah, sure. I mean, there's always arguments, for and against doing certain things in game. But something that I want you to also consider is, it is quite complex to manage something like transaction tax, broker fees, and LP store fees that people manage, to balance that out with blue loot and with bounties, etc. Right? There are certain situations where CCP needs to decide and say, okay, we're going to have to reduce the amount of blue loot entering the system. And when I say system, I mean the ecosystem of EVE, because we need to make sure that we don't have inflation run rampant. So what happens when CCP says we're going to stop the amount of blue loot or red loot or whatever entering the game? People complain and saying, don't take my money, don't take my money. What they're doing in reality is they're curbing inflation, and they're actually giving you more purchasing power, right? So it's next time you're bitching about what the hell, they don't understand what they're doing, etc., etc. Yes, you can do that. If you had good arguments, by all means do that. We should all, voice our opinions if you're smart. No, I'm just kidding. You all should voice your opinions. But, please consider the fact that this is quite a job to do. This is an economy to balance that is quite complex. And that sometimes you have to make tough decisions and you can't win, right? All right. I'll stop boring you with that. This is a great graph because this will tell you the faucets over time, and that means that here you can see what I'm talking about when I say that the Christmas event just spiked that Isk faucet like crazy. Did you work with video color filters to make your eyes blue to hypnotize us all with positive? Okay, no, this is just me. And anything else I can say, it's just gonna come out bad, so I won't do it. But yeah, this right here is massive amounts of Isk entering the game. Massive, right? I actually, the last 2 years, I have advocated for the Christmas event to not be the way that it is, right? And that's difficult to say because everyone celebrates the Christmas event and everyone's like, give me gifts, give me gifts, give me gifts, right? But this is from an economic perspective. I always hate the Christmas event because it breaks a few things about the economy. For one, it just injects a ton of Isk into the game. And so for anyone that has Isk laying around during Christmas, your Isk just loses a few percentage of value and purchasing power. Really what you need to do before Christmas is invest all your money into items so that you benefit from the inflation as well. But hey, just saying, I think about EVE differently than other players. Right? I think of it purely from the economic perspective, purely from the trading perspective. And so what I want is not always what other players want, but in the end, I have the good of the economy in mind, and so please bear with me when I say things like that. Everything else is just kind of man, I'm just not going to talk about. That is not that interesting. Isk sinks. Here's something interesting, right? Right here is the transaction tax. So if you're wondering why did CCP vastly increase the transaction tax? One, it's a good, as I said before, it's a good Isk sink. So it's for people that are selling stuff, they have stuff, right? And so it's basically a rich tax. It's a sales tax. In this case, it's taking from the people that that have a lot of stuff, that sell a lot of stuff. I myself pay probably double-digit billions in sales tax every month. So this is a good way of taking money out of the system from the rich, from the big traders, from big alliances that are selling a ton in the market, right? What they did was they reduced the broker's fee at the same time, but you can already see here that didn't do much, right? What happened here was just this vastly increased the transaction tax in a combination with the broker's fee as an Isk sink, and so this what happened in October changed EVE economy in a big way, and most people don't realize that because most people are not too concerned about the trading side of the game, but this was a big impact, and it wasn't talked about too much actually. If you compare it to the big wars or ship buffs or nerfs, right? Let's see. Money supply. This is what I'm going on and on about when I say that the money supply in the game is rising. Now, the money supply in the game rising over the last, whatever you see here, 5 years, right, is a normal thing if you have more players entering the game. Because what happens? You have the same amount of money in game, you have more players. It basically gets, if you oversimplify it, gets spread out over more people, and and you would expect if you have more people entering the game, more people, more people going out there, more people ratting, more people doing stuff in game, you would expect the money supply to go up. Now, we didn't really see that, right? We haven't seen necessarily an equivalent spike in online accounts during the last 5 years. So what you would deduct from this is it all depends on whether the active Isk delta is diligently applied, right? And probably CCP Larrikin could tell us about that in a more detailed way, how it is exactly applied. But this basically, this going up would mean that either everyone in game has more money, which means inflation, right? Or you have more people being active at the same time. Whether it's in character or corporation doesn't really matter. In which way does the transaction tax change the economy? So if we go back here, the transaction tax impacts the economy because it keeps inflation in check, right? It ensures that prices don't go out of control Because if you let people, if you cancel this, let me just go back to this one right here. If you take the biggest Isk sink out of here, then what you would have here is not a 20 trillion increase in available cash in game. It would be essentially a 50 billion increase. So what you would see is several points of inflation every month, and you would see prices go up and up and up, and purchasing power going down. So people would not be able to afford the things that they want to do in game unless they're keeping up with inflation in terms of their earnings. Right? So trillion. Yeah, did I say billion? I meant trillion. Okay. This is another interesting thing, right? Because in the end, right, what we've been talking about in the last 2 years, or not we, but pretty much any EVE streamer or any EVE community is talking about scarcity, and is talking about how it is impacting the game. So if you look at the past 2 years, you can see very, very clearly here, the orange line there is the mineral price index. That is the price of the basic minerals in EVE Online. So you can see they absolutely went bonkers, right? And that is no surprise, because their availability was drastically reduced from the game, right? So what we've seen now lately is some of those minerals being injected back into the game, but you can see that overall minerals are still at a very, very high level. Now that is concerning, because on top of that we have very, very low production. That means there isn't really any a very high demand for minerals in the game, and that means if there actually was capital construction going on, if we did have a lot of construction, then that mineral price index would increase again, right? Because you would see people mining more again, which will happen. The more expensive minerals are, the more people you will see mining. If everything else being equal, because the profession will get more profitable. Now it's more complex than that, because we had mining changes, etc., etc. It's a very different ball game to mine now, whether a few months ago. But oversimplified, that is what that means. Interestingly enough, though, if you look at these things called secondary production price index and primary production price index, these are intermediate goods. These are any components that you're building out of the minerals, any things that are in between that are not quite finished goods but are not basic minerals. For example, reactions or the production, the product of reactions. Here, those didn't really follow suit, right? So this is where you very clearly see that production is not going on right now, because we didn't really see the increase in mineral in mineral costs. We didn't really see it affect the final price of things in the market. Now we did, of course, clearly see it in terms of capitals and in terms of faction ships, right? But overall, even if you look at battleships now, which are by far the biggest ship market, even bigger than when we'll see that a bit later. It's about I think 600 billion a day market. Even the prices for battleships have now been brought back down to pre-industry change prices. So this is absolutely true. And it's a very interesting thing that is going on, and is something that it's basically this still staying low is the only thing that is keeping people's minds sane, because if these indices would do the same as this, then we would have serious issues, and we would basically not be able to play the game anymore. All right. Let me switch over, let's see here, to this right here. I want to share this with you. Now, this is, now I lost your chat. There you are, chat. This right here is something that I don't even know, since I'm not streaming on my own channel today, I don't even know if I can share this, right? But this is a nice little thing that is created by someone in our community called CPA Matthew. You will see him posting here in chat as well. What he does is he takes all of the results. I can. Okay, then maybe I can post this here in chat. Let me see if this works. Okay, I can. Cool. What this is, and I hope I didn't just crash your Power BI, Matthew. This is all the values from the monthly economic report that I just showed you in Power BI. Now, I know this is going down Nerdville, but let's face it, you all play Eve. You guys are all nerds. Like, I don't want to hear it, right? This is basically a visualization tool of the data. And so here you can slice and dice your own data a little bit. And you can look at, everything. And I have a message for CCP. Convict, since I see you typing there. Matthew is very, very upset, right? Is very, very upset that the mining analysis is not provided in the detailed data files anymore. So if you could please pass that on to CCP Larrikin, that we're very upset. There's a significant graph here that we cannot continue because you're not providing the data anymore. So please provide this again, all right? Now we can look at things like, production analysis. We can look at trade value. If you ever wondered where is the trade happening in Eve, right? People always say, well, Oz, you always spend 99% of your time in JITA or in the Forge and Perimeter. Why? This is why, right? If you're a serious trader in Eve, you're not gonna, I almost said a bad word, you're not gonna mess around in domain. By the way, can I cuss, CCP Convict? Tell me if I can cuss. I actually, your answer is going to be no, because you don't want me to go off the charts here. So I'll just try not to. Sorry. It's always evening time somewhere is what I say in terms of cussing. So domain loan track. Domain is Amar, right? Sync liaison is Dodixie. So you can see they basically they don't even in any way compare to the trade volume that is going on in the Forge, and that is about 450 trillion a day average volume, right? Or no, this is a month 450 trillion a month. So if you really want to trade in trillions and you have a lot of money to invest, then the Forge is where you want to be. If you're just trading and you're just getting started, and for example you're doing my Zero to Plex series that I have out on YouTube. If you guys want to check it out, youtube.com/OzEve, and if you do !Oz, you can see or somebody just did that, you can see my link there in chat to my YouTube channel. Zero to Plex is where I show you how to take an alpha account with 0 and take it to 1 billion in a month. Right? And I basically guarantee that because it is that easy, right? The way that you do that is you don't necessarily go to JITA. You take a character, you put one in Dodixie, you take one in Amar, and you take one in the Forge, and then you trade away. Because what you have out there in these trade hubs, in Amar and in Dodixie, is you have more inefficient markets, right? JITA is a very efficient market. Whenever you have a trade opportunity in JITA, the margins get squeezed immediately because there's a ton of traders out there, right? If you go out to Dodixie, there's a lot of inefficient markets where a lot of high margins survive longer because there's not enough traders to fill that margin. So if you want to take up opportunities as an alpha, then I encourage you to go out there. If you're a big time trader, stay in JITA. All right. Pipek, you're asking, Oz, do you recommend getting your Caldari Navy extendings up to reduce fees? Have you done this? So, back in the day, right, when broker fees were very important, right, you have to know your Caldari Navy standings will reduce your broker fees in JITA. If you're trading in billions, that is significant, right? That is definitely significant. However, nowadays it's much less significant because you cannot reduce sales tax with it. And now most of the cost of trading nowadays is in sales tax. And so if you're starting out, don't ever worry about Caldari Navy factions. You can worry about Caldari Navy faction when you're trading in 100 billion a month, right? Then it makes sense to do that. Before that, get your mind into getting high margins, getting out there and finding the right items. That's going to make much more of a difference than increasing your Caldari Navy standings. If you're a big time trader and you trade on many accounts and you have trillions of Isk, then of course you have to go out there and do that. But if you're an alpha account doing a 0 to Plex challenge, you absolutely do not need to worry about Caldari Navy standings. It's not something that is important. It's not going to make much of a difference at all. Okay. All right. Would you say trading is the best moneymaker in EVE? No. I mean, it can be, right? It can be, but it's also risky. When you're trading in big items, what you're going to see is sometimes you're going to get surprised by nerfs, right? CCP is going to pull the rug under you in some investment, and you could lose serious Isk if you're in the wrong market. So I would say it's the best way to make Isk if you cannot play the game for hours a day, right? So for example, oh yeah, don't even mention the single 25 filaments. I'm gonna go off on a rant, and we're gonna do that in the end. Sure, I'll do that. Yeah. Yeah, I have an axe to grind with CCP Rattati about the Signal 25 filaments, but that's another story for another day. If you're like me, right, and you have kids and you cannot play, like nowadays I cannot even do abyssals because I don't have 20 minutes at a time to sit at my desk and make sure that nobody interrupts me because baby aggro, right? Because life, okay? If you're in that situation, if you're old like me, and you're not in college anymore and you don't have time to play EVE for hours every night, then what you can do definitely is station trade, right? Because station trade, it's going to be about how good is your spreadsheet, it's going to be about how strategically well can you plan. It's going to be about staying on top of new developments in the game. It's going to be listening to a bunch of podcasts here and there. That for the dads or the people with that just have other challenges, right? Playing EVE, what you can do is definitely trade, and I encourage you because it's a very, very fun activity in game where you can absolutely dominate. You can absolutely dominate without having to, spend 3 hours, ratting, or without, whatever. What is it that you guys do out there? I wonder, right? Me sitting in a station, I don't have an idea. And if you ask me, so what does that mean, right? What does that mean for me? Why do I trade this much? Why do I do this? And how do I motivate myself? And the reason that I do this is twofold. One, to me, EVE is a sandbox, right? Eve is whatever people make out of it, right? And that sounds incredibly cheesy, right? That sounds like a freaking Eve commercial. But I wholeheartedly believe in that. Everyone plays Eve differently, right? And I happen to have found a way to play this game that I absolutely love, right? And that is trading. And it's something that I can excel at, even though, you know, I might not be the fastest in the clickety-click PvP, right? So, absolutely, I think that everyone has a right to play in the way that they like. 2, what this has, the nice side effect that this has is that I just enjoy making Isk, and what I now have is I have more Isk than I can spend. I don't think there's ever been a month of me playing Eve, and again, my first character is from 2004. I don't think there's any month in Eve where I have spent or lost more Isk than I have gained, right? Trading. And so I can, when I do want to go out there and play the game, right? If I want to run Abyssals and experience what they are, because I think Abyssals, for example, are just fun gameplay. And I know it's controversial, and a lot of you don't like people, leaving the sandbox and going into instanced content. So blah blah blah. I get that. Still, it's fun content. Want to try it? I can, because I have the Isk, and that's why I encourage people to do trading. Because what you can do is you can supplement your income. You don't have to, if you don't want to spend real money on Plex. You don't have to. Rat or mine if you don't enjoy it. If you enjoy those things, then go out and do them. I can only encourage you to do that, because I totally understand, right? But if you're PvPing and you don't know where your money comes from, then station trading is a great way of supplementing your income there, right? Yeah. Well, I did just spend about 30 billion on something out there. So it's not like I don't spend my money. I do. Also, for Christmas I gave away about 12 billion on my stream, I think. I mean, I enjoy just collecting Isk and giving it away. So yeah. With the even basic inflation in Eve, if your Isk just sits in the wallet, you lose value. Yeah, absolutely, Golem. That is also why I mentioned earlier that, you know, if inflation is happening and you're just sitting on your Isk, then you need to invest it quickly into items so that you don't lose value. Right? Yeah. Anyway, AT ships probably. I should buy AT ships and just look at them. Yeah. All right. Anyway, too much Isk and Eve. It's all in Oz's wallet. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. Yeah. So I don't have an AT ship yet. So maybe AT ships is my thing that I should collect. I don't believe in vanity items. I like having I like having shit that is actually impacting the game world. Okay. So. Yeah, if you guys want to use this, I just linked it earlier. You guys can look at it. One thing I wanted to look at was that I use this for is the Isk Destroyed. What you can see here is very cool, because here you can see the actual value of ships getting destroyed, right? So what we're looking at here is the year of 2022, right? We're looking at all of 2022, and if you want to know quickly what is the ship that is getting destroyed most, apparently beyond capsules, it's the Loki, right? We have what is this? This is over 1 trillion in Lokis being destroyed, right? Amazing. Ishtar over 1 trillion destroyed last year. Nice, right? This is all you AFK ratters out there. AFK. All you lazy AFK ratters out there. The Tengu. So you can see the tier 3 cruisers, strategic cruisers are out there getting destroyed. Vargur Golem, yeah. Marauders, right? And the Gila, for a long time, the Gila was the most destroyed out there. But since we're talking value here, it also highly depends on what on how expensive that ship is. So it's not corrected by that, if I understand Matthew's graph correctly. So yeah. Somebody just asked, have I ever gotten a kill mail? Of course. I actually one of my first PvP kills is out there on YouTube if you can find it, but it's not under the character R, so probably no one's ever going to find it. So yeah, does this include the fitting? I have no idea. Boglet really wants to discuss more fight. We'll get to that, my man. We'll get to that. Today I have to be a little bit more broad because we're talking to what is it, 1,200 people or something instead of our regular 200. So today I'm going to be a little bit more broad, not as specific. Forgive me, Boglet. We'll talk about specific items in the second half of the stream. Yeah, but so I love this shit. This stuff is fantastic. Love these graphs. Love what Matthew's doing here. If you want to look at, let's see here. I want to look at production specifics. No, the trends. If you click on the trends right there, this is amazing. Somebody's asking, what's an AT ship? It's an Alliance tournament ship. Those are very limited supply ships that are given out to Alliance tournament winners. I want to say every year, but the Alliance tournament actually doesn't happen every year. It happened this year though. Export imports, interesting. Bounties, you can see this is worrying. Over the last 2 years, bounties have steadily gone down. The destroyed value has steadily gone down in EVE. The production has steadily gone down. We are seeing a spike right now. Hopefully it holds, right? This is a big question mark on whether it holds. And trade value, I mean, I'm doing my best to keep this up, but it's apparently not working, right? Apparently the trade value overall is going down, and so all of this just points to fewer people in space, really fewer people playing the game, which you can see from the online charts anyway. But hopefully, if we do see some of these economic factors turning around, that should also be good for online numbers. To anticipate the question, EVE is not dying. I will play EVE until they release NFTs. Oh wait, they did. Oh man, Convict, I'm sorry, man. I have like a list of things I didn't want to mention. It says don't mention NFTs, don't mention the shitty package value, don't mention scarcity. I already broke that. So yeah. By the way, if you want to understand how important NFTs are to Perlibis, I'm not saying CCP, I'm not saying EVE Online, but NFTs certainly big topic in the last quarterly investors call from Perlibis. It's I went through those charts from the investors call in my stream last week. You can go to YouTube, to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/OzEve, and I have a video on there analyzing the Perlibis Q4 financials. So if you are interested in that stuff, the business of gaming, the business of Perlibis and CCP, then go check out my YouTube channel. You can probably find it on the Twitch VODs as well. All right. Yeah, stream about to get some technical difficulties. So that's the monthly economic report, wrapping that up. And so what I'm going to do now